You've probably heard those three words before. They were broadcast live, in a voice just cracking with desperation and shock. It became the soundtrack to a technological marvel, a dream of the future, burning in the sky.
For decades, the Hindenburg has been the poster child for catastrophic failure. But what really happened on that stormy evening back in 1937? This wasn't just some random accident. It was a disaster set in motion by a whole chain of scientific and political decisions. So today, we're going to unravel exactly what ignited the sky.
Okay, so first, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's May 6, 1937, in Lakehurst, New Jersey. The Hindenburg, the largest flying machine in the entire world, is finishing up a trip across the Atlantic. But as it gets close to its landing mast, the unthinkable happens. And it happens right in front of news cameras and a live radio audience.
37 seconds. Just think about that. That's all it took. In less than a minute, this incredible symbol of luxury and engineering was just gone, reduced to a smoldering skeleton on the ground. I think the sheer speed of it is what really burned it into everyone's memory.
But to really get the tragedy, you have to understand the triumphs that came before it. See, before it was this icon of disaster, the Hindenburg was the undisputed queen of the skies. It was a total masterpiece, the pride of Nazi Germany, and it felt like the promise of a whole new, glamorous way to travel. And when I say it was big, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. It was 804 feet long. That's longer than 3 Boeing 747s lined up end to end. It was just this silent giant, gliding over cities and oceans, a real testament to human ambition. And the luxury on board, whoa. It was absolutely astonishing. This wasn't just a flight, it was like a flying Grand Hotel. We're talking private cabins, a dining room with these incredible panoramic windows, a lounge with its own piano. There was even a pressurized smoking room and a bar. In the 1930s, this was it, the absolute peak.
It really did seem like the future had arrived, this calm, majestic way to cross the ocean. But this magnificent machine was hiding a fatal flaw, a terrible compromise. The very thing that allowed it to float in the air was also its greatest secret and its greatest vulnerability.
So the disaster wasn't caused by a bomb or an engine failing, like a lot of people thought. Nope. The seeds of its destruction were literally woven into the fabric of the airship. They were hidden inside 16 massive gas bags that gave it lift. The chemistry itself was the flaw.
So what was it? What was this one single, critical vulnerability that turned the future of travel into a raging inferno? Well, the answer lies in the gas they chose to fill it with.
The designers basically had two choices for lifting gas. You had helium, which is perfectly safe, it just doesn't burn. And then you had hydrogen. Now, hydrogen gives you a little more lift, and it's easy to get. But there's one critical difference: flammability. One is completely harmless. The other is basically a bomb waiting for a spark.
And just so we're all on the same page, when we say helium is inert, it just means it won't react with fire. You could literally take a blowtorch to a balloon full of helium and nothing happens. That's why it's considered the gold standard for safety in airships. So the obvious question is, why on earth didn't they just use the safe option? Well, the answer is politics. The Hindenburg was actually designed to use helium. But the United States controlled pretty much the whole world's supply, and they had an embargo against Nazi Germany. This forced the designers to switch to the only other choice they had: 7 million cubic feet of extremely flammable hydrogen.
Okay, so you've got the fuel for a catastrophe. All that was needed now was a trigger, just a spark. And on that stormy day in New Jersey, the very air the Hindenburg was flying through was about to provide it.
So here's how it likely worked. You know how you can shuffle your feet on a carpet and build up static electricity to shock someone? Well, imagine that, but on a massive scale. As this giant airship flew through the humid, stormy air, its fabric skin built up a huge static charge, and all that electricity was just looking for the quickest way to get to the ground. Now let's look at that final approach, because the sequence of events was just critical. First, the ship arrives right in the middle of a thunderstorm. The captain, trying to get on the ground fast, orders a really sharp, high-speed turn. And then comes the vital step. They drop the landing ropes, which were soaked by the rain, down to the crew on the ground.
And that was the trigger. The leading theory today is that the moment those wet ropes hit the ground, they created a perfect electrical conductor. All that static charge on the ship's skin instantly had a path to the ground, creating a spark. A spark right next to a hull filled with volatile hydrogen gas, likely near a small leak.
And that's what radio reporter Herbert Morrison saw. His live broadcast captured the horror in real time. You can hear his voice just cracking with emotion as he describes the flames erupting and the giant frame collapsing. And of course, his raw cry of "Oh, the humanity" became a permanent, haunting record of the tragedy.
That fire didn't just destroy an airship, it completely destroyed an entire industry. In those 37 seconds of very public, recorded horror, the dream of traveling by passenger airship died for good.
Now, what's pretty amazing is that most of the people on board actually survived. Of the 97 passengers and crew, 62 made it out alive. A lot of them by literally jumping from the burning wreckage as it sank slowly to the ground. But still, 35 people tragically perished in the disaster. The legacy was immediate and absolute. Public confidence was just shattered overnight. I mean, who would want to fly in what now looked like a floating bomb? This single event brought the golden age of airships to a sudden, fiery end, and it cleared the runway for airplanes to take over long-distance travel.
The Hindenburg is still this haunting reminder of how ambition, politics, and the simple laws of chemistry can all collide in the worst possible way. It was a beautiful, magnificent dream of the future, but in the end, it was undone by a single and what seems now like an almost inevitable spark.